Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Hello and welcome to the Skeptic Zone, episode number 74 for the 19th of March. Richard Saunders here with you once again. On today's episode, we have an interview with Stuart Garf from Redeemer Baptist School. He's a science teacher. Now, Redeemer Baptist School, based here in Sydney, do very well each year in the Young Scientist Awards. Very well. So we sent along our reporter, Iran Segev, to ask Stuart why they do so well. I think you'll find this interview very interesting. Following that, we have another blast from the past with myself and Dr. Paul Willis, appearing with Stefan Soika on NetFM in 2001. And Paul, being a paleontologist, the topic of discussion was creationism. Now, thank you very much to all those people who wrote to me and told me what they do while they're listening to the Skeptic Zone. Last week I posed the question in the think tank, I wonder what our listeners are doing. Now, I've discovered people do the garden, or they walk their dog, or they take a long walk to the end of the street and back. Some people drive, some people are in the gym. But thank you everybody for letting me know. I really enjoy hearing about what the listeners are up to. So, I hope you carry on doing all those wonderful things while you listen to this episode of The Skeptic Zone.
I'm here at Redeemer Baptist School in North Parramatta with Stuart Garf, who's the head teacher of science.
No, I'm just one of the class teachers of science.
Okay.
We have.
Is there a head teacher for science?
We do have a head teacher of science. We have a number of staff members who have been in our schools for over 20 years. So the head teacher's been here for about 28 years, or since the school started. I've been here this is my 25th year, so I'm still one of the junior members of the science faculty.
We're walking around the campus here. It's a beautiful campus, very large. Now, obviously, the reason that we met at the Science Teachers Association of New South Wales event, where the Young Scientist of the Year awards, and the reason we met there was because Redeemer Baptist School traditionally does very well in those events. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, in terms of statistics, we have been entering Young Scientist since 1987 was our first entry. That was actually called the Science Talent Search back then, and we would have had a number of good results in those days, mainly with video projects. As a science teacher, I was not happy with the amount of resources you have in terms of multimedia. If you wanted to do a video, they didn't have VHS tapes back then, easily accessible, so you had to get these reels from the State Library sent by train to the school, and put on the big film projectors. And at that time, the VHS was just coming in. And I had a video camera, so I decided to make a lot of videos and get students to make videos which related to the content we were doing. And we entered those into the original Science Talent Search. We got a first place one year, a second and third the following year. We then had a bit of a break because the competition started to change, and in 1992 is when the Young Scientist, the Science Teachers Association remoulded the competition, called it the Young Scientist Awards. And since that time, we have won, I think it's 213 state awards in the Young Science competition. We usually get about 10 to 15 per year, and we easily have more awards than any other school in those competitions.
Yeah, and you also, your students also participate in the BHP Bulletin competition.
Yeah, well, what happens is the best students from the Young Scientists get selected to go to the National BHP Awards. And so this year we would have had 2 of the 16 Australian finalists from our school. and we have gone very well again at the BHP Science Awards. They have been going for 25 years or so now. We've had more finalists than any other school in Australia and more winning entries in that as well.
And I just want to point out that we just went past a window and there was a huge big skeleton in there.
It's a large whalebone. We have a school camp down the south coast, and there was a whale that had been washed up on the beach or in the rocks for many years, and once it started to decompose, we took samples of that's the hip joint where the fin goes into the whale, to the backbone. And we got a couple of specimens we brought back. It took a few months and years to remove the smell. We left it outside, let the ants eat it away, but now it's... and
it's now inside.
It's now inside. Kids love that.
Absolutely.
Kids love the hands-on, as you know, and actually getting specimens, live specimens in the class attracts students straight away.
So obviously there's obviously a lot of information or a lot of knowledge that's being transferred to the children while they're here, while they're doing their science lessons. How much focus is there on methodology, on the science not as a process rather than as a body of knowledge?
Well, the science curriculum in New South Wales does like to give a very good balance on process and skills with knowledge. So just to do the curriculum, would do a 50-50 split between the knowledge and the process. However, we'll find that I try to increase the process and skill side by getting students involved in these exterior competitions, such as the Young Scientist, because they learn and take away skills for the rest of their life they'll never forget.
Absolutely.
So we're just coming up now to my main display. Students, when we say, well, let's do a science project, don't know where to start. And that is the biggest problem most schools in New South Wales and Australia face. All students have to do a compulsory student research project. They have to do one in Year 7 and 8, one in Year 9 and 10, and if you're a senior student you also have to do an independent research project. But the thing is, you can't just give them a brochure and say this is what you have to do. They need guidelines, they need a structure, where to start, where to get ideas from. And what makes our program unique is that we have introduced a program called the INSPIRE program. It's an acronym. The INSPIRE stands for Informing and Nurturing Science Projects that are innovative, rewarding and enjoyable. The most important part of that is the informing stage. Kids just don't know where to start. And really they don't know how to write a project up and what's needed to do a good project. So we have developed over the years, collected a lot of resources. I have a lot of video and DVD resources. So I can actually show videos of kids I can go to a kindergarten class, and I have videos of kindergarten level projects where students are talking about their project.
So what year does that start in?
Our INSPIRE program is from kindergarten right through the Year 12. Okay. It's a whole school program. I will elaborate more. Some years it's more compulsory than others. Like, for instance, we make it compulsory in Year 5 through the Year 10 every second year. The science curriculum in New South Wales, you have to do a project every 2 years.
Okay.
And so we generally have a year on and year off. Although, can I say, the year off year, we're still very busy. This is our year off year.
That's for projects,
That's for projects. Yeah. That's where they have to officially do a project. But I still have, even though it's an optional year, I still have at least 15 projects going on at the moment I know of. The kids have started right down those younger years. We also have a number of our top-level projects who have firstly won the Science Teachers Young Science Awards, probably gone well and won at BHP. They're also represented in Australia at the Intel International Science and Engineering Fair where it's 1,500 students from around the world. And Australia this year is sending 4 students, and we have 2 of those students going. Now, the good thing about this is we can now use those displays when they come back to Australia as displays for other kids to see what to do.
Of course, and we have 2 displays here. Can you maybe describe one of them?
Okay, I'll have a display here which actually won the team display competition. They won $1,000 for the best display. It was a project that looked at the problem of colour blindness, and they came up with a optical device that tells you the colour of an object. So you put it on your shirt and it'll give you that colour. There's 729 colours programmed.
Excellent.
So it was called a used red, green and blue light. It's called a tri-stimulus colorimeter. But it did something which is, you can get those sort of things now on the market. But what theirs was is that it actually had a memory, and it remembered one colour. And then you put it on the adjacent colour, and it then can tell you the difference in luminosity, the luminance contrast between the 2 surfaces, which is really important because in the building industry, if you go near a train platform, you'll have those tactile indicators, which are the yellow strips or blue strips, and they have to meet a colour contrast so vision impaired people don't walk off the on the tracks. Buildings also, all stairways must have those treads, public thoroughfares. And so the top problem is, no one had actually designed a device to measure this luminous contrast. You must have a 30% contrast according to the Australian standard. So they have built a device that actually does that. Previously, you would have to get companies like CSIRO to come in and take your measurements, and it would cost you over $1,000 to get a report done. Now you can just get their colour illuminator, put it on the 2 different objects, and it instantly gives you the measurements.
That is quite amazing. So they're high school students.
They're high school students. This has taken off in April. An Australian company called Pathfinders is manufacturing the colour illuminator, and it's having its official opening up in Tweed Heads in April. Not official opening, the official launch.
Yeah.
And this is going to be nearly every building inspector, every company that audits buildings, architects will need to get a device such as this because they have to meet this Australian standard.
Yeah, but there's also, if I may just point out something, there's at the very centre of the display, there's 2 pictures of a pair of bananas.
Correct.
One shows them under normal vision where they're a little bit green. You can tell that they're not ripe yet.
Yes.
The colourblind, according to the second picture, shows them as bright yellow and ripe. I didn't actually know that would be the effect of colour blindness. I suppose that's blue.
That's the red-green colour blindness, which is the most common form.
Yeah.
And maps, they topographical maps where they use colours to differentiate between like contours and elevation. They can't tell.
Yeah, so for people with colour blindness, that could be a huge help, having that device around, just being able to quickly, just use it to test whatever it is that.
And another thing, even people have normal vision. It's very hard in the morning when you get up for work and you've got to find your blue or your black trousers or your socks. I mean, it's very embarrassing going out when you think you've got your blue trousers on, it's actually black because your light's not good enough. But you put this machine on your trousers and it will tell you black.
Well, I must tell you that 50% of our listeners, the female ones, have not just rolled their eyes.
Correct. Your husbands won't have the wrong ties. Hopefully they can actually see if their colours do match.
That is actually, thinking that these are high school students who have been able to do something like this, not just in terms of the research and following the methodology and passing the peer review, but also actually getting it to the point where it's of international practical implications is quite admirable. Okay, so this actually is a good time to ask. So what is it? Obviously, I mean, the results are there. We know that Redeemer Baptist School does better than other schools in science. So one thing is by ensuring that the methodology is right.
Correct.
Okay, so that can't be the whole story. it's got to be something else in terms of maybe the enthusiasm. And can you tell me what you think you do that makes this happen?
Okay. There's two levels of science projects. You have those which get up to this international standard, and then there's just a science project within the classroom, just say you get a class to work on a project. I'll answer that question in two ways. Firstly, for the science level, for the science class project, just say you've got 20 kids in your class and we're going to do a science project. We firstly try to do individual projects so kids can choose topics that are interesting to them. Secondly, we would have those examples to show them what a good project is. But probably the main thing that separates us and most other schools is that we try to get them to get on in industry, get it to people who are experts in the field, and they have to do a huge literature research to start with. I make sure, when they come to me with an idea, I say, okay, has this been done before? Go and find out. And so they'll look up, first they start with the internet, have a look at that, and then we might look at journals. And then if something's been done on that before, we say, okay, well, let's see, is there any kind of tangent you can go on to? The main thing is I get them to ring people in industry, like they need assistance, if they're doing something, because most of these science projects go beyond the realm of a normal classroom teacher.
So do you think it's the going out there in the field and talking to organisations and maybe making it something that is not just based in the school? Do you think that's the main thing here?
Okay, yes, for the higher level projects. Within the school, just over any general school, if you just want to run science projects, obviously you need to have a teacher who's enthusiastic, and it's time. So, like for instance, this morning I walked into the classroom. I just wanted to walk through the class to get some things prepared for a lesson, and I had 3 people stop me because they wanted to ask about their project. Do you think this is a good idea, and things like that. And so you don't want to. And one of the projects wasn't a good idea. It was wanted to replace human blood into animal blood and see if you can, and things like that. And I said, you cannot do that. This is some projects do. Why don't you think? And then we just discussing them. They want to do veterinary science when they leave, and they want to do work with chickens or cats. You kind of you probe them what animals they have, and then you kind of develop a project from that, from what they're interested in. But the thing is, you then got to. The research plan is huge. You have to kind of sit them down. Generally at lunchtime, they come to you, and I would probably get 2 students at lunchtime who would come and would work out a research plan. How are you going to do it in a controlled way? What interesting thing are you going to do? Now, the problem is most of those interesting things you can't just come up with initially. The best is just to start on the project, just start. And you'll probably find as you get going, interesting side points will come up. And then you can kind of change the direction of your project. But obviously the big thing is the teacher needs to spend time with the student. It's a personal thing. And why I like science projects is that I actually get to have relate to the students in a one-to-one way. It's not just the teacher at the front passing on their knowledge of a topic. You also, later on, then go and personally work with students, and they really respond to that. Even the little kids, and I just have to give time. There's no really other way I can't see.
So you think that it seems reasonable enough. Do you think that it's that one-on-one that also affects the enthusiasm of the students, that ability to work with the teacher?
No, the enthusiasm is, you've got to try to generate the enthusiasm in the class to start with. And usually, another way of getting enthusiasm, kids love publicity and media. They like to be on the newspaper and the TV. For instance, just behind you, these are all newspapers which have students from our school in different... featured in different articles. Some of the magazines.
I must point out that we're talking probably, in excess of 100, well in excess of 100 papers.
Yeah, well, some of them are multiple copies, but generally I would have over 100 different articles of students in the press. So they get excited. We've got a lot of radio interviews. One of our students was interviewed by PM on the ABC last year, and a lot of them are on different stations, depending on what the project's about. And I try to enthuse students by giving them the opportunity to have their work shown to the public. Yes. That's a big factor.
How would a school that doesn't have that history that you have, is able to show projects that have been done in the past, how would a school just starting or
very
just
good
trying
question.
to get into that?
Okay, I'll give an example. I am currently involved in a My Science program, which is schools. It's a Department of Education program for schools in the Western Sydney, and they have. They want mentors to come into these schools to show them, to help them kids with their science projects. And so just say I'm going to a school where there was, had no background in science, no background in anything of this. And I've been there, this is my 4th year, I've been each year of their development. And they all do projects, they all do a poster, they have a fair, but didn't get anywhere. Very similar to how we started, because I didn't know what was needed. I didn't have any guide to go by. And so the second year, I said to the teacher I was working with, would you mind if we spend a bit more time on, just pick one project, and let's spend a bit more time so you have a model for the rest of your class. And so we did. We just had one project. We didn't spend much time, but they looked at long jumps, and most kids doing long jump look at the sand, and the whole body goes downwards. But if you look straight ahead, how much extra distance can you get by just looking straight ahead, as you're supposed to do, and then looking at the sand? So I said, well, what you need to do is firstly see how much of a problem that is. So they had their athletic carnival, and they found that about 97% of kids looked at the sand. And only 3 kids didn't, and they were some of the place getters, obviously. So they did this project, and so we had a model, and they would have emailed their tables, and I would have sent back, well, you should do this, and there's a good communication with the teacher. And so they now have a model of a good project, this project that went on to be one of the top BHP national winners. Wasn't a big project. It was, I would say, it was very small. It doesn't be huge, but it was a good methodology, and they now have a model for their school to use. So I said to that teacher, you now need to either get it as a PDF document so all kids can have a look at it and use it as a benchmark, so you know what to do. Because unless they have that, they'll just continue every year just to have projects that look good but aren't at the same level as the top level projects. So, but now they have that. They're now increasing all classes from year 3 to year 6 are now doing science projects this year. They have ResMed, a company nearby at Bella Vista, coming to their school, and they have nearly 20 scientists working as mentors in that school. And it's totally changed that school around.
Now, you obviously value the science competitions of various kinds, science awards and science competitions. Can you tell me why that is? What do you see? What do you see their value to be?
We don't just enter a science competition just to win an award. Schools have a lot of different extracurricular stuff they can do. Like, as a science teacher, I could enter my students into the Science Olympiads. I could do Eureka Awards. There's a whole series of awards. You can solar car challenges. So they're all great. So you just got to pick. We just happened to pick the Young Scientists Awards because we thought that if we get all kids doing science projects, we're actually setting them up for life skills. And it's not just something they will just do now and forget about. They're learning skills they can build on the next year. They can develop their projects. And because we're a K-12 school, if we can get kids in our preparatory school doing a project, when they do it again 2 years' time, it's the next level up, and it continues year to year. And And so we have a kind of spiral curriculum. So we have students who didn't win anything for the first 6 years of their science projects, now top projects, just because they have built on their previous skills, and now they are, they have top skills in Australia, you can say.
Do you think the competitions, the fact that there is an award, a competition, a medal, a place on the winning panel, on the podium, do you think that actually encourages students? Do you think there
Definitely.
is? So there's a value in the competition itself in terms of just the will to win or to get something?
Definitely. Yeah. Like every school has to do a research project. But these projects, such as Young Sciences Awards, they have like you can win a trip to America if in year 9 to 12 for 2 students, or you can win a couple of $100 if you win your category. That does inspire students, obviously.
There is a perception in certain parts of the public, certainly in the non-religious parts of the public, that there is a contradiction between science and religion. Now, obviously, here, that contradiction does not exist because you're a religious school with a very successful science program. Do you want to talk about that?
I do agree. In history, there's been a big potential conflict. You can just look at the Copernicus and all the time with the heliocentric and geocentric view. But we don't, in our science curriculum, put a heavy on that conflict. We have a curriculum which we teach. If evolution is there, we'll teach the theory of evolution. But we don't spend time giving necessarily our opinions, how right or wrong it is. If there's a loophole, if there's a gap in the evolution model, we'd say that. If we talked about if we go back to the Earth being the centre of the universe, where the Church was against science, that's probably the biggest point in history where there was a conflict, and we'd say, yeah, the Church in the Bible did talk about the sun going over the Earth, and so, but you can still, both were correct in a way, you know what I mean? Like the Bible might not have laid it out. This is how the universe is structured. I mean, it was to the people who it was written to, and the sun obviously appears to go over. But it's not saying that the Bible was wrong. It's just that to the audience it was written, it was logical. You're not going to. So in terms of in a normal class situation, we see that religion and science are not opposites. We're very clear about that. There may be ethical issues where science is kind of going the area which that shouldn't be. It's going too far, and it should leave things alone, especially human life. And obviously we'll not be happy with that. But we don't see them as opposite, conflicting views.
Maybe if I can just point out something. You mentioned the sun going around the Earth. As long as you do not treat the Bible as a science book, you do not expect it to actually explain the underlying scientific facts, then I don't think that would necessarily be a problem. Do you?
That's correct.
Do you
No, I don't think it's a problem. Not at all. Like you get, like this morning on the news report, they talk about the permafrost, that methane gas is leaking through the permafrost, and that's another example of dangers of global warming.
Yes.
But they made a phrase that said this has been the highest level of methane in Antarctica for the last 60 million years. And when I heard that, I often have a question how they know. How can they say that? What about in an ice age? That is where I would, if I had that situation in a class where you watch a video and they make a comment which has no real evidence or measurement to go with it, I say, you need to be careful what you hear when those things are said. And so we're also teaching students to discriminate fact from possible fact, you know what I mean?
Thank you very much, Stuart Guy, for being with me on the Skeptic Zone.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you very much.
This is Eugenie Scott, National Center for Science Education. You can find us at www.ncse.com. Come see us if you want to know anything about the creationism and evolution conflict in the United States, or more's the pity internationally these days. We are a clearinghouse for information on this vexing but certainly very interesting problem. Come and find out more about it.
Can't get enough of Euphoria with 1 in a Million here on NetFM, and it's after the 6 o'clock mark here on Thursday, which means it is time for the Skeptic Tank. Good evening, Skeptics.
Good evening. Good evening. I don't believe it.
Oh, no. Oh, that's a good one. We have in the studio a very well-renowned paleontologist, Dr. Paul Willis. Good afternoon.
How are you?
Very good, and of course our regular skeptic dude, Mr. Richard Saunders.
Hello, Steph.
How you doing out there?
Really well.
Oh, that's good. Nice of you to both drop into the studio. And what do we have in store tonight with the Skeptic Tank?
Well, tonight we're going to be looking at the subject of evolution and creationism.
Ah, that's always a very, very
bit of a
contentious issue.
Contentious, controversial.
Controversial.
That's right. It shouldn't be, actually, but it is.
It is.
It's a debate that was won in science 150 years ago.
And people are still arguing it.
No. The people that want to argue it are religious fundamentalists who find it offensive when reality clashes with their beliefs.
Right.
If that hasn't got some people's backs up, then I don't know what will. We can always try a little bit harder.
Yeah,
but essentially the debate was won 150 years ago when Charles Darwin put out Origin of the Species.
Right, but aren't some scientists starting to say, oh, no, that's not, even that might not be true, and then clouding the issue again?
There is an interesting book that came out a couple of years ago called In 6 Days, 50 Scientists Explain Why They Accept Creationism. And if you read that book, there's a couple of things to notice. First of all, most of them are not biologists, so they don't actually understand evolution.
Yeah.
And that, if you understand evolution and read it, it's quite obvious that they don't really understand what's going on. The other thing is that they're all religious testimonials.
Yeah.
They're all people who are working as scientists in various areas of science,
right.
Computing or hydraulics, all sorts of things. But the thing is that what they've sold themselves on is their belief in the Bible will not allow them to do anything else.
So they know nothing about evolution at all, but they're still claiming that they do. Which that's probably it in a nutshell. Okay.
In their case. Okay. We're getting in there dirty tonight, folks.
Yes, indeed. So, and you, as a paleontologist, you were able to show lots of compelling evidence, of course, that over billions of years, lots of things happen with the different life forms on the planet.
It is one of the problems in arguing against creationists, and that is that in order to actually understand the evidence against them, I mean, I spent like 12 years at university doing an undergraduate degree and then a PhD, going out there, splitting rocks, looking at the evidence firsthand.
The actual evidence, yeah.
I don't like to have to turn around to people and say, well, look, take it from me. But the thing is that, unless you've got a fair grasp on the basic science behind it, which does take a university degree to get under your belt, and it can all seem a bit mystifying.
Yeah, well, I think some people may have a hard time comprehending the amount of time involved in evolution of where we are right now, the millions or even billions of years.
Oh, yeah, so do I. I have immense problems coming to terms with those lengths of time.
So why not conveniently just make it 7 days?
Well, the thing is that I have a greater ease at disbelieving the claim that the world's only, say, 6,000 to 10,000 years old.
Yeah.
For instance, where we're sitting right here in the middle of Sydney, okay, we're sitting on top of about 2 kilometres of sandstone.
2 kilometres.
And if you look at that sandstone, you can work out how it was laid down. It was laid down in a river estuary, and it was laid down at a rate that was probably less than a metre every decade across the whole basin. In fact, probably less than a metre every 100 years. So you've got, many thousands of years just in that 2 kilometres of sandstone. Underneath that, there's coal. In order to make coal, these coal beds are only now a few feet thick, but we know in order to make that coal, you need to have swamps that were hundreds of feet thick that have been compressed.
Yeah.
How long does it take to make that? Underneath that, there are rocks that have been folded up and have got life or evidence of sea life folded up
inside them. Yeah,
so,
it's phenomenal, isn't it?
It doesn't take long to realise you might not be able to come to terms with 1 million years, with 10 million years, with 100 million years. But it doesn't take long to realise that the Earth is a very old place.
And stuff was happening way back.
Most definitely.
Yes. Well, we're getting into it now. We have a scientist in the room. Yes, we do. I'm going to play another little song. It's Billie Piper. She's young. Billie Piper's only young. She's only been around for, what, 6 or 7 years, I think. I think she's about
nursery rhymes, is it?
16 or 17. It's getting close. It's something deep inside. That's not something a young person would be talking about, is it? Here we go.
I can never get too much. I hear you loud and clear. I've got nothing to fear.
We're back into the Skeptic Tank. We got Paul Willis, Dr. Paul Willis, and Dr. Richard Saunders.
Oh, thank you.
I'm just giving you an honorary doctorate from Net FM.
What the hell? Why don't we give one to everyone who's listening today? Consider yourselves doctors, folks.
Ring up, we'll give you an honorary doctorate at Net FM, a doctor in Net FMology. Now, Paul, you've obviously had a bit of fun over the years with the creationists. They've been trying to challenge all the evidence that you've been digging up over the last 12, 15, 20 years.
The thing is, they don't actually come directly out and want to challenge you personally.
No.
Because it would be like pulling wings off of a fly to respond. The thing is that creationists do have a very well organised system whereby they go around to country schools and country churches and put on these little seminars. There's some regular features of them.
Yeah.
One of them will be, the most outstanding one to me, is that they generally run out of time and so they can't have any questions at the end.
Yeah, right.
Which is fortunate for them because, there's so much of the stuff that can be questioned.
Sure.
Now, I have made a point over the years of when one of these is not too far from my home, I will gladly go along and make a point of challenging them and forcing questions.
Yeah.
The thing is, the whole creation-evolution discussion, you've got to realise as an evolutionist, you're never going to win. You're up against people who are not interested about what is right and what is wrong. It's a case of their whole life
is
founded on a literal interpretation of the Bible, and so therefore they can't begin to conceive that anything else might be correct.
No, they can't.
The thing is, what's important is we're not out there to
blow them out of the water
or to change creationists. But if we don't challenge them, they will win by default.
And they will change other people.
Exactly.
Yeah. So they're actually going around, they're organising seminars.
They have the Creation Science bus, which tours Australia.
Really?
Yeah. And this goes to mainly to places outside the major cities, because most of the major cities have a strong anti-creationist movement, such as myself, and people from the various museums who will go out and challenge them at these sorts of events.
So when they're saying creation science, so they're somehow saying that yes, God did all this wonderful stuff in a different length of time than it really happened.
The term creation science, they're using the word science,
right?
And straight away it gives people the wrong impression. Like this stuff.
So they're not talking about science at all.
Not at all.
No,
it's nothing to do with science. But they use science and they'll use scientific terms.
Yeah, and the giveaway point is that when you actually go along to a creationist meeting. They don't talk about the evidence in favour of creationism because there is none.
There is none.
What they try and do is attack the
evolution. Yeah.
And they're not really just attacking evolution; they're attacking science. They will attack geology, which has really got nothing to do with evolution. But they will attack geology because it contradicts their worldview. They attack physics. They say things like the speed of light is slowing down. Well, hang on. No, it's one of the great constants of the universe. They will say that the second law of thermodynamics precludes evolution. Well, they obviously don't understand some basic physics, such as the second law of thermodynamics. I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of the arguments.
Right, but that's what they're doing, yeah.
They're having a full-out onslaught against all of science, not just evolution.
Because I thought that some people that were taking the Bible literally were beginning to sort of come around a little bit and start to say, well, okay, well, it wasn't 7 days, but the basic concept was it was created by God.
There are reform, what are they called, theistic evolutionists who they believe God sort of directed evolution. Look, the thing is that there's no evidence for it.
No.
And science is based on evidence. You know, the reason why I accept evolution as the explanation to why we're here on the face of the Earth is because when I go out and I split the rocks open, the patterns that I see in the fossils match what ought to be there if life has changed through time.
Sure, over that period of time. But still, changing through time, is the only thing that's determining those changes these environmental things, or is because that's what when you look at the actual design of creatures, look at a skeleton, it's like, my God, that is pretty amazing.
You should remember that what we were talking about before and the time scales involved.
That's right. It's
unimaginable
so long.
Time scale.
That's right.
But there's another thing too there. If you take it backwards a step and say, okay, so perfect design. And you sort of think, well, maybe there must be a God behind perfect design. The thing is that most cases that you put up from the biological world of supposed perfect design really ain't that good.
They're not perfect, yeah.
The human eye is not a perfect way of seeing the world.
No.
If you were God and you were to sit down from scratch and design an eye, you would not come up with the design of the human eye.
And you probably wouldn't come up with the millions of different creatures that are on this earth all eating each other and going
my
crazy.
back hurts.
How come God is so fascinated with beetles, for God's sake? There are so many of them.
So many ants as well.
I mean, the thing is that there's no argument one way or the other under creationism as to why you would have millions of species of ants.
And bacteria.
But under evolution, it makes perfect sense.
That's right.
So again, it's matching the pattern. A good test, if I can just bung this one in, because this one comes from paleontology. For a long time, the creationists has been saying, well, something as complicated as a bird's wing, like half a wing's not going to work, so you can't have half a bird's wing. And so, therefore, you evolutionists, show me half a bird's wing, and I'll believe that they evolved from something else.
Yep.
Only in 1999, Caudipteryx was found in China. It's a small dinosaur with half a wing.
Bird's wing.
It's like God's on our side. He's actually giving us all the good evidence.
Hallelujah!
Hallelujah! Just suck it to these guys.
Send those creationists to hell.
Then they say, well, okay, so no, it's a bird that's lost its wing. That doesn't make any sense either.
It's a mutant
because it's also got a reptile's tail. It's got a reptile's skull. It's got all of these dinosaur features. If it didn't have the feathers on it, then we wouldn't know that it was had any bird affinity.
There you go. So all those people out there, when the Christian Science bus comes your way,
the creationist science.
Creationist.
The creationist. Let's not put the word science in there at all. Let's just take that away from them.
When the creationist bus comes your way, get out your eggs and hurl them.
Yes, and say, Caudipteryx, you swine! Caudipteryx!
Caudipteryx egg! Okay, here's Amber Sunshower with Running Song in the Skeptic Tank. The big exit with PJ Harvey here on NetFM. Stefan with you till 7 o'clock. And we're in the middle of the Skeptic Tank. Actually, we're coming to the tail end of it. We're draining the tank. Even as we speak, we're shoving all sorts of things in it, solvents, to try and dry it up. And we haven't got long to go. But
let me plug the leak, all right?
Plug that leak.
I will.
Actually, you can plug anything you like. Plug the Skeptics.
Plug the Skeptics. In fact, a couple of...
There's plenty of people who would like to plug the Skeptics, by the way.
I believe it, yeah.
Creationists especially.
They write to me, that's right.
Yeah, look, I work at the ABC in the science unit, and if you want to check out the sort of stuff we get up to, go to www.abc.net.au/science, and you'll find Catalyst, which is a program I work on, Radio National. We've got the Science Show and Earthbeat, and all sorts of goodies on there. If you've got a scientific leaning, it's a good place to contact.
ABC does some good stuff with science, don't they?
Well,
they try, don't they?
Thank you. We do our best. 8 cents a day, we do what we can.
You do what you can with 8 cents a day. That's pretty good.
Still 8 cents a day. Good heavens.
Now, Richard, you just came back from a water divining challenge.
I've had a big year. I mean, 1 month I'm in India, and the next month I'm in the high country of Victoria, a little place called Mitta. Wonderful little village, but every year they have the mighty Mitta Muster, which is a big cattle and horse and wood chopping show. Yeehaw. And the local skeptics put on a great water divining or water dowsing challenge.
Okay.
So I went along this year partly to have a look, and I'm also putting together a little documentary about it the whole day.
Wonderful.
And saw 30 water diviners running around a tennis court with rods and wands and pendulums and all sorts of things waving all around the place. And
they were trying to win $100,000, is that right?
There's $100,000, or in this case, I think it was $110,000 up for grabs.
GST.
Well, now we're all skeptical about that.
Okay.
And sadly for the diviners, although beforehand they were predicting 100% success rate.
Oh, absolutely.
strangely enough, their results at the end of the day fell exactly as per chance.
As per chance.
Not much better than tossing a coin.
So they completely failed. No water was divine.
Well, water was divine, but overall they failed. Yes,
right. And I guess that even though they probably, like, say they got 1 out of 3 or something. Is that what do? You had some empty.
There were 25 plastic milk bottles.
Okay.
Wrapped in paper and plastic, so you couldn't tell what was inside.
Right.
Some had water and some had sand.
Okay.
And they ran around and their rods would react and say, right, this one's got water. And their rods would not react to the next one. They say, right, that's got sand. And as I said, the results at the end of the day were like if you walked around and tossed a coin over each one. You'd get similar results to the dowsers.
There you go. So all you dowsers out there, forget it. Drop it.
Well,
give it up.
Well, until they can come to us and actually demonstrate that there is such a thing as dowsing for water or anything else, we just have to take it as another funny claim.
Yeah, don't give it up. Just keep coming back to the skeptics. Someone's got to get it sooner or later, folks.
Oh, they will.
They'll do it sooner or later.
The millionth person, I think.
Yeah, wonderful stuff. And well, Dr. Paul, it's been absolutely fantastic having you in, having a real doctor, a real paleontologist, someone that can.
More.
Someone who's got a bone to pick with with the creationists. So all you people out there, that if you see the creationist bus coming along, just stay away from it, or ask them lots of questions. Cordiptrix. That's the half bird.
Oh look, just throw eggs.
And don't forget, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Egg-laying reptiles evolved into birds, so definitely the eggs came long before the chickens.
Right. There you
have it.
It's official. Okay, well, thanks, guys. It's been a wonderful Skeptic Tag this week. We're back into the music again for our listeners. This is St. Lunatics Batter Up. We'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
See ya.
AstronomyCast takes a facts-based journey through the cosmos as it offers listeners weekly discussions on astronomical topics ranging from planets to cosmology. Hosted by Fraser Kane of Universe Today and myself, Dr. Pamela Gay of Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville, this show brings the questions of an avid astronomy lover directly to an astronomer. Together, Fraser and I explore what is known and being discovered about the universe around us. Join us each week as we take a facts-based journey through the cosmos at astronomycast.com.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Skeptic Zone. Next week, I hope we have our think tank back again. And thank you also very much to those people who subscribe or donate to the Skeptic Zone to help us keep the show online and hopefully entertaining. So until our next episode, this is Richard Saunders signing off from Sydney, Australia.
You've been listening to The Skeptic Zone. Visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for comments, contacts, and extra video reports.
The Skeptic Zone.